Good day, ladies and gentlemen. We're joining you from Switzerland at camp of the U.S. men's national team. Today we're joined by the head coach of the U.S. men's national team, Gregg Berhalter, to discuss the 23-player roster for the 2021 CONCACAF Nations League Final Four. As we get started, a couple notes. If you would like to ask a question, please virtually raise your hand at the bottom of the screen. As I mentioned, we are now in Switzerland in training camp ahead of the match against 13th ranked Switzerland on May 30th. That match can be seen live on ESPN, Unimas, and TUDN beginning at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to begin with comments from Gregg, and then we'll take your questions. I'll turn it over to you, Gregg.
Thank you, Michael. We're excited to get this group together, especially coming off the heels of excellent domestic seasons by our players. We're looking forward to competing to win a trophy and also just going through this process. This group has been together now 3 times in the last 8 months, and every time we get together, we get closer, we build the team even more. So this is going to be a great opportunity for the boys to be together in Switzerland and then as we transition to Denver. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Gregg. We will start with Ron Blum from the Associated Press.
Hey, Gregg. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, Ron.
When you look at the 23 you pick, taking into account some of the injuries, Morris and Long, how close do you see this to your first choice roster if the first qualifiers were now?
Good question. There's a couple guys that come to mind. You mentioned 2 of them with Jordan and Aaron Long. There's also Paul Arriola that's been a mainstay in what we've been doing since 2019, and then Chris Richards, an excellent young center defender that is out. So we're missing a couple players, but nonetheless, we think it's a strong roster. Some of the roster decisions were made based on who's available and what's happening next in the summer. So, when in doubt, we leaned on the European guys because we knew that they're going to need rest and then preparing for a preseason. But overall, really happy with the roster. I think it's a very strong roster and looking forward to getting the guys back together.
Thank you.
Next will be Stephen Goff from the Washington Post.
Hey, Gregg. Thanks for your time.
Hey, Steven.
Looking at this roster and the success that so many of these players have had with their individual clubs in Europe, in the big picture, what do you think the importance is to American soccer for a lot of these guys to go and win trophies domestically, and also obviously to see 2 guys in the Champions League final?
It's amazing. I can't say enough about it. How proud we are of our players. No matter what competition they're in teams that are competing to win the titles. And that's exciting because what it does is it carries over a culture of winning to the U.S. national team. And that's what we're looking for. When we step on the field and we compete to win these trophies, we want guys that really understand what it means to win and value what it means to win. But also having the expectation that, winning is what we're looking for. And anything less than that, isn't good enough. And we have a group that can do it. It's not going to be easy. It's easy to talk about it. It's a lot harder to do. It's a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of intensity. But we feel like we have a strong group.
Next we'll go to Jeff Carlisle from ESPN FC.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, Gregg.
Hey, Jeff.
I was wondering if you could shed a little bit of light on Tyler Adams' situation.
Yeah.
Because, Leipzig sent him home. He didn't play in the last game because of a back injury, but he is in with you guys. And then just to kind of piggyback on that, I was wondering if you could talk about the center back situation, especially with Aaron out.
Yeah, so, with Tyler, he's a guy that we've been monitoring very closely. He was touch and go at Leipzig. They held him out of the cup final. He still had a little bit of pain that he was getting treatment for after the cup final, was preparing for the final day of the weekend and still was struggling a little bit. So he went home to get treatment. And, we were monitoring how he was, his condition. And we felt that he's that important to the team that we want to put him on a roster. We know we can always replace him if he's injured. We have enough players in camp to do so. So it was a risk worth taking for us. Regarding the center backs, it's a shame what happened to Aaron. When you see that non-contact injury so severe like that, your heart just drops. So really, really sad for Aaron. He was a big part of what we're doing. A starting center back for us, so that's going to hurt. But we feel like we have good depth. The center backs in camp have all had good seasons in Europe. Tim, with the exception of not having played a lot, but you see he's come on and played the last couple of weeks and getting tied to Man U at Manchester, so that was a good result for them. But then we have other guys that weren't in the pool and weren't in this roster, and we'll be looking at in Gold Cup, like Walker Zimmerman, like Miles Robinson. So there is a deep pool, and we're looking forward to seeing what these guys can do in this camp.
Just as a point of information, the official roster must be submitted to CONCACAF today by all 4 teams. From there, a team can only replace a player up to 24 hours prior to their first match due to injury. So as Greg mentioned, that option is still available. Next, we will go to Paul Tenorio from The Athletic.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Greg. Obviously, a tough decision up top. 3 number 9s probably being considered for 2 spots with Josh Sargent and Sabachu and Daryl DK. What went into the decision to bring the 2 guys you did and to leave Daryl off the roster?
Yeah, it was tough. It really was. Daryl's here in camp with us, and he'll be here for the duration of the camp. And it's unfortunate that you have to name 23 guys. The way we're looking at this whole trip is, we're going to travel with more players because we want to simulate what World Cup qualifying looks like, where you can interchange the 23 each game day. Here, unfortunately, you're not able to do that. Daryl will still be part of the team. He'll play against Costa Rica. And when it came down to those particular 2 games, we based it on current form. Jordan had an outstanding year playing for young boys. They won the title running away. He scored a lot of goals. We thought that his movement inside the penalty box is really good. Getting on the end of crosses is really good. And Josh is playing at a really high level. He's playing in the Bundesliga every week. He's competing. His minutes this year were off the charts and doing really well. So for us, it was very difficult. And I had a conversation with Daryl today about it. And it's the hardest thing a coach has to do is tell a player news like that. But Daryl has a long future with us, and this is just a temporary setback for this tournament, but he's part of the group, and he's going to enjoy his time here.
Next will be Brian Strauss from Sports Illustrated.
Thanks, Michael. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Brian.
More just thinking about the Champions League final on Saturday. There was some concern over Zach being the backup at a club and how that might affect his development and his playing time. There's a lot of conversation over the offseason about all the attacking talent, the money that Chelsea was spending, sort of bringing in competition for Christian. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are in light of the fact that both teams have made the Champions League final about how those 2 players kind of handled some of the questions and some of the adversity and some of the challenges that they had in front of them this year.
Yeah, and listen, they both did it in 2 completely different ways. When I think about Zach, it's bravery. It's bravery to say, I'm going to stay here even though my playing time might be limited, but I'm going to be learning, and I'm going to be part of a project that's massive. They won the Premier League this year. They have a chance to win the Champions League. He played in the League Cup final. He's played a number of Premier League games. So he had to make that decision on his own, and it's not an easy decision to make. When I look back on his year, I would say that he's definitely improved, he's definitely progressed, and that's all you want from a player. So a very successful year. With Christian, it was different. He struggled in the beginning of the season. He had some injuries. But when I think about him, it's just relentlessness. It's a guy who doesn't give up. And we had a lot of conversations, and it just kept encouraging him and saying, you have quality, keep going. And he's a guy that showed that he can do his talking on the field, and that's what we're most proud of. The way he got back onto the field, the way he won a starting position, and then the way he just kept persevering and performing was really great. When you think about having 2 Americans now playing in the Champions League final, I get goosebumps thinking about it. It's an amazing feeling, and we're going to be watching them and rooting them on, and proud of both of them.
Next, we'll go to Iva Skalarstep from SBI Soccer.
You got me?
We got you, Iva.
Hey, guys. Two-parter for me, surprise. Striker
roster? What do they bring to that position, and how do you see that kind of battle shaping up between those two?
So I'll answer the second one first. I think Kellen did a great job against Jamaica in the friendly. Right? This was a guy that was playing in preseason and came and played 90 minutes against Jamaica and did a really good job. He was a player that we were unsure of how he would perform there, but he took to the role, he understood the role, and he executed it really well. Jackson's a guy that we've grown with. We've seen him, make his debut in June in Jamaica, or end of May against Jamaica in DC, and then since then, he's just kept improving. He's just kept getting better, and games like this, Jackson, in my opinion, is a guy that needs to be tested. And games like Switzerland, the games, Nations League semifinals, hopefully finals. These are games that will test him, and that's exactly what he needs. And then we'll be able to really determine, the difference between those two. Regarding Jordan, when he got in camp, the first thing we noticed was his movement inside the penalty box. Very good timing to attack space, very aggressive attacking space, making one move for the defender, one move for himself, that he can really open up and get to that space when the cross is coming in. So that was really good. We also liked his ability to combine. When you see the penalty kick that we got in the game against Northern Ireland, we see a couple other half chances. We thought it was interesting how you can play a ball into him, move off, and he can combine really well. And the third thing was these small little movements behind the back line, which is something he needs to continue on, but we saw the understanding of how to run into space. And this is a good time for Jordan to test himself and for us to learn about Jordan as well. I think, Daryl's a guy that we're pretty familiar with. We've been supporting him from afar and all the great work he's done at Barnsley, and we think he'll have a big future with the national team. But I think this is a great period to evaluate Jordan and get to know him really much better before we go into qualifying.
Next will be Ryan Talmadge from Goal.com.
Hey Greg, one of the guys kind of coming back into the picture is DeAndre Edlin. He's the guy who hasn't really been with this group that much over these last few years, and a lot has changed since the last time he was here. What have you seen in him, now that he has gone to Turkey and kind of found a role there, and as a guy who has played in World Cups and in a Copa America and in Gold Cups and everything like that, what can he bring to this group that is still very young?
Yeah, that's a great point. He certainly brings experience, and what we've liked from him is him going to Turkey, taking no time to adapt to a new league, and playing on a team, as we mentioned before with all our guys, that's fighting for a championship. They lost on goal difference on the last day, tied on points with Besiktas, and really had a good season. And what I say all along is you can never count a guy out. It's based on their performance. It's based on what they're doing at their clubs, how they perform when they're with the national team, and we don't set anything in stone. And another example of that is Julian Green, who's in here. He just got promoted with Firth. A long time since they've been in the Bundesliga. Great accomplishment for the club. On the final game day, they were down a man, down a goal, and they clawed back to win that game. So these are things that are great stories, and it's great to have both DeAndre and Julian back in camp, and we're looking forward to working with them.
Just one point of information on DeAndre. He is the most experienced player on the roster in official competition, with 27 caps total. Next, we'll go to Jose Rodriguez from Deporte Total USA.
Thanks, Michael. Greg, I wanted to ask you, in terms of having the first official game against Honduras for Nations League in a while, what's the approach to this game, and how much can you learn from Honduras per se, knowing that they haven't played an official match in a while as well, and they have been playing friendly matches for most of the last year, and they have been able as well to switch players around, to rotate players. How's the preparation for this match, especially against Honduras, the first official match coming back? Thank you.
No, it's going well. One thing I'll say for the national team is it feels like every match is an official match. When we step on the field, we want to win matches, and we know that our opponents do as well. So, technically, the Nations League semifinal is a knockout game. So it's really official, so to speak. But we're looking forward to the game. I feel bad for Honduras because they haven't, due to COVID, they haven't been able to get their group together. We saw them play in a number of games. They were able to put a good side together. It's a good team. It's a physical team. It's an experienced team. and it's going to be a good test for us.
Next will be Charles Bone from MLSsoccer.com.
Hi, Greg. We've seen some reports of disappointment with the decision for the Nations League venue site being at altitude. Does the altitude of Denver pose any additional challenges? Do you think that gives, for example, Mexico an advantage, or are there any other issues that you see having to deal with there?
Charles, can you repeat the first part of the question? I just missed that. You said someone was disappointed. I didn't hear that.
There were unattributed reports that people within the federation were disappointed with Denver as the choice because of the altitude.
Yeah, it is what it is, Charles. We'll deal with whatever venue that we play at, and it will be an equal playing field for all the teams. We're all playing on the same pitch. We're all playing the same altitude, and like I said, we can only control what we can control, and we'll deal with it.
Next will be Michael DeCourcy from Sporting News.
Yes, Greg, I wanted to ask you, in the two legs of the Real Madrid series, what you saw from Christian in those, was there anything new with what he brought to those two games, or was it just the idea that he was doing those things on that enormous stage?
I think in the first game, it was what Christian does. That to me is typical Christian performance. Just being able to terrorize the defense and make an impact by scoring goals and being dangerous. And that to me was pretty par for what Christian does when he's playing his best. What I really liked in the second game was his mindset and his tenacity coming off the bench, because that's not easy. And the coach is in a situation where he wants Christian to come in and make a difference, and he absolutely makes that difference. And that was really great to see. You can understand there could be disappointment by not starting the game, and the only way to respond is to show it on the field, and that's exactly what he did.
Next will be Brian Sciaretta from American Soccer Now.
Thank you very much, Greg, for doing this, and thank you, Michael. Question is about two parts. First of all, Anthony Robinson hasn't played the last several weeks. What is his health and status coming into camp? And then also, with regards to Anthony and Josh and Tim coming off of relegation, difficult seasons where they've been relegated, what's your advice to them? And maybe not so with Tim because he's a veteran, but the other guys because they're younger. What do you give? How do you handle their confidence after might be being shaken after a season like that?
This is our sport. It's absolutely brutal. I've been both promoted and relegated, and it's not a nice feeling. And it's just something that you accept the good and you have to accept the bad as well. And it's not a great feeling, to know after 34, 38 games that you're not going to be part of the top league anymore. So we feel for them. With Anthony's case, in terms of his playing, he was cleared to train full with Fulham. He's returning to fitness. He's been out for a couple weeks, and he's another player that we'll continue to monitor when he's in camp. And if we deem up to the tournament that he can't go, then we'll replace him. But right now we're planning with him. All the medical reports have been really good coming out of Fulham, so we expect him to be training with the group full.
We have two more questions. First from Avi Krediger from SI.com.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, Greg.
Hey, Avi.
Just to clarify, you had mentioned that Daryl would travel with the group and play in the Costa Rica friendly after the Nations League. Will the rest of the group that's together in Switzerland also be joining you in the U.S., or will others from MLS fill out the group first, Costa Rica? How's that going?
No, we'll reduce the group when we travel to the States, but we're going to stay with 25 players, and the reason being, again, is to test the cadence of World Cup qualifying, right, that we talked about. And we need a big group. You never know what happens with COVID. You never know what happens with injuries. And, we're going into all three of those games with all hands on deck. And, it's a brutal message to the guys, but it's something we're going to have to be facing in September and October, And I'm telling them, listen, no, after the Champions League, after the Nations League final, we're not we're not done. Our work's not done yet. We got another 3 days, guys, where we need to hold on and put a team together that's going to compete and win that next game. Because in qualifying, every game's important, and you need to really invest in the squad that you can win those games.
Our last question comes from Sanjay from Yanks Are Coming. Sanjay, I'd appreciate if you could help me with pronouncing your last name.
Sujan Kumar, but I just go by Sanjay.
We appreciate it, Sanjay.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks, Greg. Two-part question, Greg. First part, as we get closer to qualifying, there are potentially several players wanting to parent clubs with make decisions about where they're playing next season, and they have a chance to be with bigger clubs. And whether it's just that, what kind of advice do you give to those guys, such as Chris and Daryl? Obviously, each player situation is different. You want them getting minutes, but you also want them pushing themselves. So, generally, is your view of this any different now that we're close to the World Cup qualifying? Seems to really count. The second question, Brendan and Gio are both listed as forwards. Do you view them exclusively as wingers in the system because of what they offer higher and wider, or do you foresee any situation in the future where you could use them in the middle as attacking minutes? I know Brendan has made a couple appearances there in the past.
Yeah, who was the other player? It was Brendan and who, Sanjay? Gio. Is that what you're saying, Gio? Yeah, okay. No, to answer the first question, we're here to help the players out, advise them in any way we can. We've been around, we know the clubs, we know the reputations, we know what type of soccer they play. Our priority is to get the players in the best possible situation as possible. But in the end of the day, the decision is driven by the player. And, this is their career and we can help advise, but at the end of the day, we're very supportive of any decision that they make. I'm excited to see what happens with some of the guys. Daryl's one of the guys that, you're just excited to see how the whole thing plays out. He's done a great job at Barnsley. He's also very valuable to Orlando, so we'll see what happens there. And regarding Brendan and Gio, Brendan's done a really good job in Salzburg this year playing in that winger role. Having mentioned that Paul Arriola and Jordan Morris are out this camp, it's more than likely that we see Brendan playing the winger role. Gio's another one that has lined up wide on the right for Dortmund a number of times. We like him there. We also think he can come centrally and receive the ball centrally. So with both of those players, they give you a little bit of flexibility. One thing we'll be looking for from both of them is still that they want to give us verticality and that they stretch the field, that they're not only getting the ball to feet. That's going to be really important in this tournament.